I stole from Swabby, Sweat and legendary pirates whilst also being joined by some of the sea's finest, and in doing so made myself £500 lighter. How did this happen, I hear you asking? Well, let me tell you about my month-long mission, and make sure you stick around to see all of the carnage and mayhem yet to come, including the most epic naval battle I've ever seen to finish off my quest. So I had an idea for a grand expedition spanning over a month in which I would steal as many chests of fortunes, legends and reapers bounties as I could. But for each chest of fortune I sold, £10 would be donated towards a great cause, and £5 would be donated for the other 2 chests. So what you're about to witness is the greatest moment shared with pirates such as ToxieSinclaire, ExodusAblaze, and stay until the end if you want to hear about our run-in with Serpents and Sotus. Well, from the very start of this endeavour, I knew that we would be in for a ride as I sailed on board the Dancing Monkey towards the inaugural Fort of Fortune, only to be met by an alliance formed by a galleon and 2 brigantines. Of course, for now we had to lay low and join them, looking for a way to break apart this bond. However, we were heavily outnumbered 10 to 2, so I plotted against them as we took on the waves of skeletons. I finally decided to use the stronghold kegs inside the vault to take on their ships, if they weren't in use of course, but as the Ashen Lord was defeated, all crowded around that one vault, and as it unlocked, both me and my crewmate took our steps back before firing at the kegs and blowing up every single one of them in the process. We ran in, picking up the chest of fortune, and after boarding our ship and sailing away before they could react, we had noticed that this alliance suddenly broke out into an all-out war, and with that, we were free to sell our hard-earned chest, and it was on to the next one. Although I should feel bad about some of these steals, I had plenty of signs telling me I was doing the right thing as ancient skeletons spawned on me multiple times. But there's never been a steal I felt worse about than this one. This started out like any other Fort of the Damned steal, swimming over, tucking on their crow's nest and waiting to see what transpired. But as it happens, they had just finished and began loading everything on board. They even took all of the valuable treasures downstairs, so as they went back onto the island, I went and hid amongst them, completely out of sight. Eventually, I could feel the ship begin to sail away towards what I could only presume was the Reaper's hideout to sell everything. But that is when they began moving treasure back up to the top. As they walked away with a chest in hand, I ran and hid in their bed, but as they came back to pick up another chest, I made a dash for their crow's nests and somehow, I was still undetected. Arriving at the top, however, was 3 lovely stronghold kegs waiting for me. And as we arrived at the hideout, you guessed it, I ignited 2 and dropped them over the sides. However, as I jumped off, I noticed that they had caught and defused both, but with one still in their crow's nest, I fired my flintlock, exploding their ship, killing both and almost instantly sinking them, leaving me to sell the chests of legends and the 2 Reaper's bounties. During these steals, I discovered my true secret power, and that was kegging ships, as the amount of times I boarded and sunk pirates thanks to kegs, even on a galley, had me wanting to see more and more kabooms. But with ExodusAblaze joining me, we discovered a man attempted to tuck on us, and even after we spotted him, he decided it was best to just wait it out on our mast. However, without any other ships coming, this would not count as a steal. But not long after all of this, we spotted another Fort of Fortune in the distance, which as we arrived there had just been completed and the sloop there had just sank a brigantine. So as we approached the island, Exodus hopped off, retrieving the chest of legends and quickly getting it back on board. However, the chest of fortune was nowhere to be seen. I made a quick getaway to the nearest outpost to sell at least 1 chest. However, arriving back, we took out the pirates from the sloop and sank their ship, before getting back onto the island, whilst after a long and thorough inspection of the fort, I had found a buried treasure and we had come out victorious. Now, some steals were easier than others, jumping in and out with everything that we needed, and others lasted hours fighting over and over as many ships sailed in. However, some seemed easy, but soon transformed into situations that meant one wrong move could cost us our mission. And at this fort of the damned, we rowed over towards what appeared to be a brigantine fighting a sloop. But both sides were not expecting visitors, as we arrived, finishing off Greymarrow and moving the chest of legends and Reaper's bounties on board our rowboat. We totally didn't get the chest stuck on a rock, which I grabbed with a pretty nifty leap.
No. I got.
But I grabbed both oars and headed to our ship. As we were now carrying 2 giant beacons, their focus turned on us and my crewmate went back to our vessel, sailing it towards me in the hopes of picking me up. And luckily, they managed to do just that. But with Reapers as our destination, and a brigantine right behind us catching wind, we needed to make a move and fast. So we turned around having the wind against us, in the hopes of losing them. But no matter what we did, they were hot on our heels the entire time. No matter what we tried to do to shake them off, even making several boarding attempts, we knew that we were in trouble here. However, approaching Plunder Outpost, I made a dash to sell off the chest of legends, narrowly making it and securing the steal. But we still had 2 bounties on board. Luckily for us though, the sloop that was chasing had caught up and well and truly had enough, firing at the brigantine and locking them into a fight that they could not escape, leaving us to sail freely away and sell off the last of our steals. Now, some of these steals were a little sneaky, hiding and waiting until they arrived, jumping out and killing them before taking the chests as our own. But what will happen when you get me and ToxieSinclaire tucking on a galleon stacking the Fort of the Damned? Well, you'll get Toxie hiding as a barrel below deck, as I sacrificed myself nobly due to us being caught. I totally meant to die here, guys, you know, to get back to the ship and see what was happening once they completed it. But as they knew pirates were now lurking, they began to stack all of their treasure, so I began to sail in. I fired at them as we sailed past, whilst Toxie took them out on board, and as things were looking great, I jumped on board to help out. Together we took down this galleon crew, leaving them to sink before loading up their double stacked loot, meaning 2 chests of legends and 4 Reaper's bounties here. But in doing so, we spotted a brigantine heading straight for us, so like before, we headed to Plunder Outpost. However, these boarding attempts were a little different. Trying to put space between us, I tried to get aboard and there were only 2 of them in this crew. I took them out and anchored them, leaving Toxie free to sail away, before eventually they were able to finish me off, allowing me to arrive back just in time to sell the Athenas. Turning around, we had to sail past them again, and Toxie, wanting some fun this time, decided it was their time to board, doing the same maneuvers of killing them and anchoring them down, until finally, the brigantine had sunk, and I was free to sail all the way to Reapers to sell off our bounties and the rest of the treasure. After 21 chests of fortunes, 28 chests of legends and 28 Reaper's bounties all stolen, I was 1 more chest of fortune away from raising £500, and with a Fort of Fortune staring me down, I decided to head on over. Parking nearby, I got on a rowboat and saw a sloop there, so I expected a nice and simple tuck. However, this was everything but, and turned out to be one of my greatest naval fights to date. As I arrived in the tower, I could already see a man hiding there, and after a quick discussion, we decided to team up and take these guys on. And it was looking even easier when a member of the other sloop was not aware of our location. So a little tip here, guys, if you see a mermaid and check the towers, just look up. Sadly, one of the other members of the Tuckers were found and killed, so they decided it was time to bring in the ships and take them out. We all sailed back now, arriving at the fort, but now we noticed 2 enemy sloops circling. However, after spotting my Tucker friends, we allianced up and set out to take on the seas. Many cannons were fired, ships boarded, kegs blown, and eventually they began sinking. However, no matter how many times we sunk them, soon enough they would return, and faster than we had anticipated, our supplies were dwindling. We tried taking on the fort quickly. These foes were not to be messed with, and sure enough, a 5th ship had entered the fray, a brigantine racing in, and we wasted no time before unloading into them. Making use of my cursed cannonballs, we circled them and they were sunk much faster than we expected, but more and more sloops kept coming. We held them back, and eventually, after sinking them all again, we had a second to finally breathe, and as we all took on the Ashen Lord, one final shot to his chest ended this madness, and after all of this, the vault was unlocked, and the chest of fortune, stolen from the first sloop but given to me as a thank you from my new friends amongst the seas, took me to £500 as I sailed off and sold it, before celebrating with them until eventually I had to leave. And with that, this journey was over, but if you want to see my 2 most sweatiest steals from this, including my encounter with serpents and sotas, then click on the video on screen right now after you subscribe for more crazy tales like this. Arrgh!